Is your money funny like mine this month? I'm going to talk about that on this segment of the Gig Geezer. If this is your first time checking out the Gig Geezer, if you're a returning visitor of the Gig Geezer, hey, thanks for coming by. And if you would not mind, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome the comments in the section below. When I thought of doing this segment, I thought about saying, are you broke like me? You may not be broke like me, but you may go through stretches in which your money seems funny right now. Well, with this being the month of February, you know that for the most part, you're 2, 3 days short in money earning capacity. And admittedly, it almost caught up to me when I started looking at bills that I need to pay for the end of the month. But I'm sure there are individuals who will see this video, they'll scoff at me and at what I've said and dismiss it as someone who's failed to manage money rather soundly, or that I've been full of shit in terms of the money I said I've earned on this channel. Adding to the latter argument, what I'm saying may merely confirm what some detractors, some skeptics, some haters may have been thinking all along, that I've been a fake, liar, fraud, son of a bitch, bastard, motherfucker. Words that are reminiscent of what my exes have said of me, because I've never shown the work despite my showing the actual receipts, be it actual rate confirmation sheets, emails of opportunities negotiated, or even screenshots of gig app payouts. This time last year, I went through a stretch of many, many, many sleepless nights as if my financial situation had converged in on me. I responded to the pressure that I felt a year ago with my second most productive month. And I've never shared this. I've never mentioned how much I grossed that month, but it was a little more than $11,400. And for whatever it's worth, my best month thus far in this delivery and transport space occurred back in August 2023, when I grossed more than $12,700. And guess what? After paying out all that I had to pay out for the month of February, I still felt broke. Or better yet, let's just say that I still felt as if my money was funny. Some of us who are in the delivery and transport space, we're in it for a multitude of reasons. So that means we have our varied reasons for coming out here each day that we do. I've shared that my reasons were that, hey, I've got bills to pay and I've got a household between me and my queen to maintain. I've also said that my coming out here in the delivery and transport space has earned me more money than at any previous point in my adult life. And there are many a times I've felt as if I felt as if maybe if I could only turn back the hands of time 15, 20, even 25 years. Now, I may leave myself open when I say this. It may be that my heart and mind should be about providing a service to people, but that's not what I'm motivated by. That's not to say I don't conduct what I do in a professional manner. In fact, I remind myself many times that what I need to do is treat what I do as a business in order to see business like results. And I would say that people notice that. And I am not naive to think that people aren't watching. But I've asked the question, does your money feel funny? Well, I've thought of, I've thought about recently that many of us don't have 30, 40, $50,000 in cash at our disposal. And even if you don't have that kind of hard cash, many of us don't have access to leveraging that kind of commitment. Leveraging, I mean, in terms of other financial options, be it the ability to obtain a personal loan and or having credit card limits of that high. So, what's the mindset when you enter into this space or in any other business space? For many, you feel as if you got to come in running. You've got to come in swimming and not gasping for air and not allowing at any time the possibility of sinking. Even if you've been in this space a while, there's a good chance you feel as if you can't let your foot off the pedal. It's as if you got to double up or else. Now, in a recent live stream, I mentioned to one of the guys whom I had a direct chat with, when you're starting out, you've got to consider all of your costs, not just your vehicle note if you happen to have one, and your insurance. You also have to consider your domestic costs. And I mentioned during that conversation that I commuted my costs to have come up to an upwards of about $8,000 to $9,000 a month. Now, the next question was calculating how long would it take for me to reach a break even point, a point where the income meets the expenses. For me, since I can say, for the sake of conversation, that January 2023 was my first month of this venture, the answer to that question was estimating that it would take me between between July and August 2023. And that happened to coincide when I reached earning or grossing 10,000 in a month for the very first time. So far in this experience, I have described that I reached my lowest point, and that was between August and October of last year. And while the bills were still being paid on time, the most accurate thing that I can describe is that it was not fun. It was not fun being on the brink, the absolute brink of going out of business. And yes, I was on the mat, and the count had reached two. So I want to pose something different, at least during this particular segment of the Gig Geezer. The question is, how did I deal with those rough times last year? And for that matter, how have I dealt with my saying that the money's been funny during the month of February of 2025? When it really got bad last year, between August and actually mid-November of last year, my queen would say that I didn't handle it well. I distanced myself from her, and it was as if I was merely vertical and nothing more. Here's what is generally suggested when you're in situations like I was in last year, and actually what I'm looking at this year. And maybe some of you are familiar with this. It is said that stress, embarrassment, and a sense of helplessness can accompany these feelings of when you feel as if your money's funny. They say own up to your situation. So that means, yes, I've already said that I feel as if my money's been funny during February. I'm not going to say I'm broke, but I just feel as if the money was funny. Now, between August and mid-November of last year, man, I don't, I mean, I want to say broke, but it was just bad. Now, I attempted to remind myself that I'd been in similar situations as what I've described to you so far, and even maybe worse during my decades in my adult life. It was difficult for me, at least last year in particular, because it was the first time I'd gone through it during my ownership experience with the sprinter/cargo van and in the transport and delivery space. So, a question may be, had I been or have I been living beyond my means? I will tell you outright that I don't live an extravagant life. And yes, I've got car notes and insurance for those vehicles. There's a valid reason why those car notes exist. They existed, first off, nearly 18 months before I even entertained any thought about a sprinter/cargo van. So I will say that when I really was at my lowest points between August and November of last year, I actually entertained the thought that maybe it wasn't as smart of a strategy having financed the van. But then again, yeah, you may dismiss it saying that, hey, but that's less than $600 a month. I know that it's still a van note. The other cost that really loomed even more prominent was the cost of commercial insurance. And I've shared that that's been $1,520 a month. And that's a cost that I factored in back in January 2023. But even with acknowledging and managing it, there are times as if you feel as if, man, that's $1,500 a month, $1,520 a month that can go towards other things. And really, it could. So it's said when you're in situations of feeling as if your money's funny, don't blame others. it kind of goes back to accepting responsibility, but also being pragmatic. The pragmatism is that, hey, in life, shit happens. Now, the first time I heard that was 35 years ago this month. And that was the answer to an interview subject's question that I'd asked him. It was a rather personal question. And he kind of summarized it as saying, hey, look, shit happens. Now, I thought it was funny, but I really had no concept of what he said until decades later. And you know what? Things had gotten so rough in all aspects of my delivery and transport operations last year that despite my best efforts, and if things get so rough in your business operations, there are times, despite my best efforts and even your best efforts, it still happens. So one may ask the question, why hadn't I put any money back? Well, last year, there was some money put back. I'll just tell you outright, there was some money put back, but there was a lot more going on than what I've described. So imagine what it's like, say, when it's winter months or even summer months. In the winter months, when it's really, really cold and there's a big pull on the electricity. And then in the summer months, there's a big pull on electricity. And in some places, when there's a big pull, there could be circuits that break. Well, fortunately for me, there were no circuits that broke. Now, it's also argued that when you fall into situations like what I'm describing or have described, you need to you need to put together a plan that will get you out. Now, I will say this much. There were things that I had been doing as a business person in which I'd worked towards putting myself in a position to where I'd have more earning options. Creating more options is something that I've talked about on multiple occasions and even in recent Gig Geezer segments. What I went through between August and mid November of last year was, I would describe as turbulence. What I've dealt with so far in February 2025, I can't call it turbulence, but minor, hitting like a speed bump, hitting a series of speed bumps and having to slow down to ensure that you don't go over them too fast. The best thing I can say is that I've kept my hands on the controls, and that was despite how bad it appeared last year, and despite the fact that I was not handling things the best way I could possible. And what I mean by that, handling things on a personal level with people who are in my life who have an interest in me as well. I'll say this much. For as often as I talked about how one cannot earn more by accepting things for less, I'll acknowledge that there are situations when you have to take what you can get. But my answer to that is also you have to minimize taking what you can get. There's something about when you stick to your guns. It's as if when you succeed sticking to your guns, you've experienced calling someone's bluff. It's as though you've given yourself a chance to fight yet another battle instead of succumbing to one. Now, what kind of got me out of what I described last year is that I got a phone call in early September that ultimately put me in a position where I was able to emerge from that rough stretch. It also put me in a position where I was able to implement parts of the strategy that I had long since come up with, in which I felt as if it might give me additional earning options. So that all began to materialize in late November. So during a time when things tend to slow down, I was actually ramping up. And that was despite time that I spent in the hospital. So then we moved the calendar to February 2025. We're nearly out of this month. And while some of my costs have come down, I still feel as if my money has been funny. That's just the way I feel, although it may not entirely be the case. As I mentioned in the recent video, I want to put myself in a position where my money begins making money for me. I'm not there yet, not at all. But I've given myself 5 years to get there. I say that because in my situation, the clock is not in my favor. It's as if It's a football game. I'm taking possession in the fourth quarter and I'm behind by 2 scores. That's just the way I feel. I can't kick 2 field goals to get ahead. I can't even score a touchdown and a field goal to get ahead. I've got to score twice. I've got to get the ball in the end zone twice. So these are the things that keep me up at night. These are the things that temper any cause for celebration, because for me, I know that I've got to keep pushing. But what's nice about being in the delivery and transport space is that I've got the capacity of earning decent money. It's not out of the realm of reality that I can earn more than $1,000 in a single day. Now, does that sound as if I'm not grateful for anything that has transpired thus far? If you feel that way, you don't know me. And maybe I'm guilty of not showing public displays of gratitude. But I'll give you a hint. Whenever I say that an opportunity happens to have had my name on it, I'm fully aware that maybe it was meant for me. I don't take it lightly. So that's all I have to share in this particular segment of the Gig Geezer. If you like the content that's been provided in this segment or in any other segment, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I'm Ed Lane. As always, may your grind and may your hustle continue.